All right, welcome to the Snide Report. I am your host, Gary Snyder. Before we get to my next guest, which you can kind of see, I don't know, he's probably on either side of me here. But before we get started, we do need to thank our sponsors of the podcast. First, Robin Winston has been a great sponsor since day one. He's the one that actually kind of put his foot up my rear end to get it started. So thank you, Robin Winston. And then we also need to thank former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson. You can get her newest book, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America, which includes, I believe, something by you, correct, Congressman?
Yes, sir.
So you have
Absolutely.
an essay in there. So thank you to our sponsors. And, I kind of gave it away already if you haven't seen, but welcome, Congressman André Carson. Welcome to the Snide Report.
Thank you for having me. Always a pleasure.
Well, and I want to thank you for all the great work you do and your support for the newsletter, which now reaches over 100,000 people daily. So continues to grow.
Well done. Congratulations.
Well, Congressman, I wanted to bring you on today because you are, co-sponsoring a bill to rein in the president and get back Congress's power of the purse strings, and especially when it comes to tariffs. Why don't you take a few minutes and tell us about that?
Well, we have a bill. I think it's important to recognize the genius of the founding fathers in not wanting to have an emperor in charge and to have three but separate equal branches of government and allow Congress really to be prominent as it relates to the imposition of tariffs. I do think that there is a space for the president to enact tariffs under exigent circumstances, or there was a 1962 act that deals with national security that allows the president to impose tariffs. I think we're seeing him try to exercise his executive authority in this regard as it relates to semiconductors. But I think what this bill attempts to do is to get us back to regular order where we have a healthy system of checks and balances.
You know, the way I see it sitting here in Huntington, Indiana, it seems like maybe we don't have three equal branches of government right now.
No, you're absolutely right. I think President Trump's tariffs are untargeted, and they're across the board on our partners, on our friends, and our allies, and it will absolutely harm American families and our own economy, quite frankly, far more than we're attempting to hurt our foreign adversaries or even China for that regard.
When you take a look at tariffs and the effects that it has on Hoosier families, especially in the 7th District, we have a stock market that is going very volatile. It's very volatile, and a lot of people are talking recession. Even one of the largest hedge fund managers came out today, said this could even put us into something worse than a recession. You've done some town halls, some virtual town halls.
Yes, sir.
What are you hearing from your constituents down in Indianapolis?
I've been to several events over the past few days. I mean, I've been back to back to back and talking to people, and people are distraught. They're concerned. We've heard from auto dealers. We heard from our friends with the UAW, local leaders, and they're really bracing for layoffs. It's so heartbreaking. Just having met with folks with the FDA and HHS and other governmental agencies who are dealing with mass firings because of DOGE, now folks in our auto industry are facing layoffs, and local business owners have come up to me, small business owners, and they have told me that this chaos is hurting them, and consumers just can't withstand these fluctuating prices and what's taking place. I think most Americans view tariffs unfavorably. Even Trump supporters disapprove of these tariffs. And because we all know it essentially drives up costs.
When you take a look at how it's affecting your constituents, how do you, I mean, is it the higher prices that we're still paying? Is it the volatility in the stock market, or kind of a catch-all of all of the above? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that if you take a look at your 401k and it's down 50%,
Great point.
and you're within 10 years of retiring, that means your 401k has to double to get back to where it was.
That's an excellent point. You know, tariff whiplash is causing uncertainty. It's causing uncertainty in the stock market, as evidenced by your very brilliant point about 401ks. I've had folks come up to me as recent as yesterday. I was out at the store and they were complaining about their investments, their 401k. They've hit their pension benchmark. They've checked their account. They've seen differences and they're distraught. I had another gentleman come up to me the other day who was in the park the day that RFK announced Dr. King had been shot. And he said with tears in his eyes, Andre, are they going to get rid of Social Security? And I looked him in the eyes. I said, I don't think our Republican friends could withstand the pushback if that were to happen. And I think the same exists as we talk about tariffs. I think about so many Hoosier farmers. I think about those in farm country and our manufacturing sector and our retail and energy sectors. And I look at how American farmers benefited under the Inflation Reduction Act and how those very farmers, Midwestern farmers, Hoosier farmers, will be impacted. I look at our steel industry. Indiana produces steel, notably a lot of steel. We always have. And as we talk about tariffs, which are punitive, and I think that there's a space to have a discussion about healthy tariffs and using tariffs in a way that will establish boundaries as it relates to how we deal with our trade policy. We need to think very seriously about mineral diplomacy and what that looks like for manufacturing states in the industrialized Midwest like Indiana.
Yeah, because I believe China just said they are going to stop importing a lot of minerals and magnets that we need for manufacturing.
That's so true. You hit the nail right on the head. And I think a part of what President Trump has seemed to be flying by the seat of his pants, but he's tried to establish greater context as it relates to steel, has been our auto workers, forcing our auto workers to build in America, which I'm all for. But I think that strategy has had not only global implications, but local implication. And it has caused so much distraught and despair that it has effectively impacted the marketplace.
When President Biden left office, I believe it was the Wall Street Journal, maybe it was a different publication, but basically said Trump is inheriting the best economy in decades for a new president. You look at it now, what would your message be to President Trump?
Well, my message would be, Mr. President, your decades of success as an entrepreneur and a business person is noted. It's something that I've applauded years ago, but I think I would urge him to reconsider the very blatant and very brazen attempt to punish our enemies and our adversaries, which there's a space for it, but the deep wells of uncertainty that have formed as a result. I'd say, Mr. President, these new taxes are a disaster for farmers in Indiana. I'd say, Mr. President, about $30 billion in U.S. produced agricultural goods could be on the hook because of retaliatory tariffs. I'd also say, Mr. President, when you placed import taxes on American companies buying from China 5-6 years ago, China responded by shutting out U.S. farmers out of the Chinese market. And it cost them $30 billion in lost farming income. And I lastly say, Mr. President, our farmers had to spend money to develop new markets in other countries. They had to build relationships with new governments and new businesses abroad who don't do business the way we do it. They don't have our ethos. They don't have the same practices. Corruption seems to be the norm. And it puts our farmers and our entrepreneurs in a situation that is damaging not only to their businesses and their personal infrastructure and family infrastructure, but damaging ultimately to local economies and our national economy.
The House just passed the budget resolution late Friday, I believe it was. Maybe it was Thursday. How concerned are you that that budget resolution, once they get into the nuts and bolts and making cuts, is going to affect Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security?
No, that's so important. I mean, if there's one topic or two topics or three topics that we get regularly in our district office in Indianapolis here and in DC is what's going to happen to Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. These budgetary cuts, listen, I think that there is a healthy space to talk about austerity measures, reining in excessive spending. I'd be one of the first to talk about it. But to do it at the expense of the working class, to do it at the expense of our seniors, is not only ill-informed and misinformed and misguided, it is absolutely a death trap for the future of our society and the future of our constituents.
All right. Anything else you want to cover on tariffs or the budget? I've got to shift gears here a little bit. I know
No,
you're on a
sir.
tight schedule.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned Indianapolis. Your district covers Indianapolis and Marion County. Today, down at the State House, there is a huge Red for Ed education rally to protest the impending cuts to localities and public schools. The wealthiest homeowners in Indiana can have a property tax cut. Your thoughts as they gather in Indianapolis?
Listen, property taxes are not fun. They're not great. They're even worse when they go up unexpectedly. I think it's important to make investments in our educational system. It's important to make proper investments in our school districts. Teachers are at the front lines of our society, right behind parents and grandparents and neighbors. Teachers are there spending, in many cases, more time with our children than we do as parents.
That's
or we
absolutely
do as
true.
relatives.
Absolutely true.
And these teachers have a different lens outside of the busyness of being a parent and being a working parent. The teachers are trying to not only educate our children, they're trying to counsel them. They're trying to parent them in some ways. They're trying to coach them. They're seeing malnourishment when these kids come into class. They're seeing children who aren't getting proper rest or sleep. They're seeing children who are navigating around stressors that exist in the home, and school is their only refuge. They're seeing the different children who may not come from a background where their parent or guardian had the best experience in our educational system. And as a result, they aren't getting the reinforcement and encouragement and support that they need. So teachers have a very, 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 very tough job. They're stretched thinly because of testing requirements. The least we could do is not only compensate them properly, but protect them and give them the space and the freedom because they have been trained to teach to each child, regardless of our learning style, whether we are an auditory learner. Many of us are visual learners like myself and auditory. Some of us are kinesthetic learners. We learn by touching and building things. Teachers are equipped to speak and address to those learning styles as well as overseeing that our kids are properly fed. A lot of children in Indiana, in urban centers and rural centers, I don't have to tell you, Dr. Snyder, that a lot of these children, their best meal comes from our schools. Doesn't come from the home. It comes from going to school every day. And with all of that a child has to bear, the least we could do is give their support system the kind of foundational tools that they need to have a successful village in the process.
I know you're on a tight schedule, so just one more question for you.
Yep.
It appears that you do have a primary opponent,
Sure.
at least filing for next year. It says he wants a new generation. My first question is, you don't look that old.
Well, thank you. You know, I just turned 50. Now, maybe when I was 15 or 18, I thought 50 was old. When I was in my 30s, I knew it wasn't that old.
No.
And now that I'm 50, I know it's not old, especially in Congress when some of my colleagues are like, "Oh, my daughter's your age." I'm like, "Wow," you know. So in Congress, no, it's not old. And look, 50 is not old. You're not old. I'm not old. And so I welcome the younger generation. Every year we send Hoosiers to a political boot camp for a week because we're trying to build a bench. I'm constantly working with the youth. That's known. Our staff is relatively very young, right? So it's something that I do. My daughter tries to keep me as cool as possible, but I recognize that perspective and perception is important. Even in my 30s and mid 30s, Even when Obama ran, Obama was like 48, 50, 52. I thought he was young. He's still relatively young, right? So I think it's a matter of perspective and how you're raised. And I think having been raised by older people, I understand the investment of investing in younger people. And that's something that I'll continue to do. And look, this is a democracy. Everyone's welcome to join and participate. I'm just a representative. I'm not here to lord over anyone or to be anyone's master. I see myself as a steward and a trustee over taxpayer interests. And I go to work each and every day with a sense of mission and purpose to represent Hoosiers.
All right, if you're just joining us, we're speaking with Congressman André Carson. Before we let you go, Congressman, we do need to thank again Robin Winston, great friend, I
The
think,
man
of both of
himself.
ours.
Dr. Wynn.
A great sponsor of both the newsletter, which now reaches 100,000
Wow.
subscribers daily, many in your district.
Yes, sir.
So, and then also former Congresswoman Jill Long Thompson.
Love her.
Just the greatest. Her
Phenomenal.
newest book is out, Across the Aisle, Why Bipartisanship Works for America, which includes an essay from Congressman André Carson.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
Real quick, where can people find you? Oh, I did want to get one last statement from you, if you could.
Yes, sir.
I did forget, Pennsylvania Governor Shapiro had such a horrific violence against him and his family today or last night. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I just reached out and sent something to him. My heart and prayers and thoughts and love go out to the Shapiro family. Governor Shapiro has done a great job. I feel for Governor Shapiro, his wife, and his children. I relate to that. I've gone through similar circumstances and situations. Our office just received several threats very recently, and it's something that comes with this life. It's not fun, but I think we have to do a better job at not expressing our dissent or differences through violence, harm, or terrorism.
Very, very eloquently said. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, just real quick, I think maybe I asked you this, but where can people find you? Social media, all that good stuff.
Well, on the carson.house.gov, carson.house.gov, 317-283-6516, 317-283-6516. Team Carson is here to serve you.
Thank you, Congressman. And just a reminder to everyone, slam that subscribe button right below here. Subscribe to our podcast here on YouTube, and we will give you a free VIP subscription to the Snide Report for the rest of the year. So just do that. I'm Gary Snyder. He's not. He's Congressman André Carson. This is the Snide Report, and we're out.